right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Sky's the Limit Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Doherty, and today we have Joey from Wealth Without Wall Street. Wealth Without Wall Street is an online community that actually helps to re-educate business owners and families on how money really works. You know, there's a lot of people out there that are just uneducated about this. So their goal is to really inspire and re-educate and teach people how to enhance savings, increase cash flow, and create passive income without the help of Wall Street. So, Joey, you guys are doing awesome stuff over there. Thank you for coming on the show. And with that, welcome.
Oh, man, glad to be here. I love being in the room with like-minded people, so we're going to have fun.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about your community here, your online platform, and how you got started with it, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So, man, we are over 10,000 strong on our app. If people want to find out more, they can actually find us if you search Wealth Without Wall Street on either our podcast, website, or you can go to the App Store and download this community. And it is really just about people who are all about freedom. You know, at the end of the day, they're fed up with the corporate grind. I think you and I talked about how it just wasn't a good fit for you. It's not a good fit for most, but they don't really know that there's a way out. They don't know that there's a different option than the traditional idea of retirement. And we're more about freedom today, right? The Bible doesn't talk about you having guaranteed tomorrows. And we really make the most of what we've been given today. And the only way to do that is by getting to financial freedom, which we define just like Robert Kiyosaki, that when your passive income exceeds your monthly expenses, now your calendar is your own. And we want to help people get there as fast as possible. How I got to this point is I was that guy in the corporate grind in the mortgage business. And so if you've been in the real estate world, you know that, man, you're only as good as your next phone call from a real estate professional, getting that referral and getting them closed on time and all this sort of stuff. And man, although my income was substantial, I was making over 300,000 in my 20s. I realized, man, all the things that I was working for, my family, my 5 daughters, my wife, I was being taken away from them in all the special times that we had, vacations. I was constantly working. And I needed a way out. And so, man, we've documented over the last 15 years of Russ and I working together, getting to financial freedom, where now we have produced over 50,000 a month in passive income. And we share that every month on our own passive income report on our podcast.
Yeah, that's amazing. Congrats to all your success. That's it sounds like it's a great community, great network. And that's it. You want to surround yourself with other like-minded people, and that's what the community is about. Now, I think a lot of listeners could probably empathize with the fact that all this sounds great. They're hardworking. They'd like to get ahead in life. Everything. They only know the stock market. They're going to invest, and maybe now they're open to a little bit of diversification into the real estate, but not really sure how to get started. If you were to give any advice to someone that doesn't own any real estate, what would you tell them? What would you have them? Maybe they can start by joining the community. Maybe there's some books that you would have them read, but I think knowledge is wealth, and so you really do have to start by listening to podcasts or maybe ebooks instead of listening to Sirius radio on your way to work. Pull up a podcast. What would be your advice to someone just getting started?
Well, I'm going to push back just a little bit on what you just said, because I'm going to ask you a question. How many people do you know have read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
Probably, I'd probably say that's one of the more well-known books.
Yeah.
I'd probably say half the investors I speak to.
Right. I mean, I would say there's millions and millions of people who have actually read the book. So they know the formula to freedom is through passive income greater than monthly expenses. But how many of those are actually financially free who have actually read it? It's a minuscule percentage, right? And so I think knowledge is important, but it doesn't produce freedom. What does is there's actually two pieces that are missing to the puzzle. And this is what we've identified over the last 15 years. Number one, people don't change. Once they get that new knowledge, they don't change what they do with money. Okay. And we can dive as deep as you want into this, but there's so many people that started their job in their 20s and their business, and they started doing things with money that supported an idea of retirement, which is 40 years down the road, hope strategy, Wall Street based, all this sort of stuff. And they get this new information. They're like, oh, wait a minute. I could be financially free today. I could have more time with my family today. I could be able to travel and do geographic freedom today. Wait a minute. That's what I want to do. But they keep doing the same things with their money, which you got to change the paradigm. Your cash flow system has to support this new goal. So that's number one. And then number two, people assume that they are investors and they're not. I mean, I'll just be honest. I think most people who have even started a business, they think, well, I'm starting a business. I'm an investor. I can invest. But those are two very different skill sets, right? An owner, operator, entrepreneur of a business has to be super optimistic. They have to be driven. They have to be like, I'm going to just put in the work. I'm going to make it happen. That's how entrepreneurs make things happen. Well, an investor is the complete opposite. They're pessimist. They go into a deal and they say, "Oh, this deal's not going to work. I'm not doing this deal. Show me why I should." They prove to me that this is a good deal. They do the due diligence. They ask the hard questions. They pause. They don't jump first and then see if there's water in the pool, right? They're going to inspect what they expect. Guess what? If you don't submit to learning to be an investor, you'll never be an investor. And so I think those are the two things that are missing. That's what we built our whole program around, is helping people build a cash flow system and then train them to be investors. We have a 12-week course. We can dive into all that. But those are the two things that I think are absolutely missing. And I would tell anybody to start at those two things.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. The thing is, you just have to take action, right? There's so many people just sitting on the sidelines and making excuses, we'll call them, because, well, I can't invest now because rates are too high. Rates are 6%. Historically, these are actually really low rates. Do we ever, what are you going to wait for them to see 3-4% again? But then you have a million other buyers flooding the market as well. Like, you got to pick your poison, and you got to stop making excuses, and you just got to jump in, because the thing that date the rate, marry the house, or something like that. And you could come up with a million excuses why not to invest right now, but the truth is, any good investor can make any market work. So I think you just gotta take the plunge, and like I said, joining a community like yours could help motivate people and educate people on how to do that. So there is a lot of deals out there. You're based in Alabama, we're up here in Connecticut. Do you mind sharing what kind of deals you're working on now, and kind of what keeps you up at night? What do you like about it, and what are you seeing here in the market?
Well, I'll tell you what, we are pretty diverse in terms of what we invest in. And if you listen to our show, we do a passive income report every single month to break them down, just because we want to be result leaders. Mike, I think there's a lot of people that are talkers. They get on and they can talk a big game, but they're not really doing much, or they're not even doing what they're saying that you should do. It's kind of sad. But what we've said is we want to be result leaders, right? We want to be showing people behind the curtain, this is what's working, this is what's not. Some of the things that we have done and I feel really confident in are we do land investing. Okay. So we buy and sell raw land and turn them into owner finance notes. So you may have interviewed thelandgeek.com, Mark Podolsky. If you haven't, you should, because his model is just amazing. You buy raw land at 20 to 30 cents on the dollar, because people want to get rid of land, and if you buy in the right price points, it's very inefficient, meaning not a lot of realtors are going to take that project on at, a property that's worth 10,000 or less, and you could buy it for 2 or 3,000 because they're just wanting to get rid of it. They're back on taxes. They're not using the property. It's something they inherited, whatever. They turn around and sell that property for 10K on owner finance notes, $200 a month for 50 months. They make way more on that property than you would just selling in the open market. And that's the model that we've employed since 2020 with an operating team. So it's passive to me and Russ, my business partner, because we have a full-time operating team. And that alone has yielded $36,000 a month out of our portfolio in owner finance notes, and we've invested a little over $500,000 into that business.
That's unique. I haven't talked to anyone that is doing that. So you're buying, land that is not developed yet, and are you are you getting it to a point where it can be developed, and you're going through town approvals? No, you're just buying raw land and
Yeah.
getting really good deals on it. So you have some sort of marketing, right? You're doing some sort of marketing, going direct to the owner.
Yep.
These are off market deals typically, or some on market,
Almost all off market,
right?
mailing directly to sellers.
Yep.
There's some wholesale deals where other investors just want to flip it for a small profit that we can buy. We have, resources for that. But the key is that you make, I've heard somebody say this, you sell the financing and the land comes with it. People want to own things, but they're not necessarily in position to have the amount of cash that it takes to own those things initially. But they can afford a house payment, or a car payment, And so you make it affordable, and all of a sudden the price is not as important, and you're able to help them get started in something that they wouldn't have been otherwise.
Yeah. What kind
So
of interest rate are you charging the buyers here?
in many cases, there's no interest at all, but you're just making the difference, the spread on what you bought it versus what you're selling it for.
So a lot of people are willing to pay a premium on that spread because you are willing to do seller finance.
Yes,
So
and to be honest, the premium part is actually unclear because, as you know from being in real estate, raw land is hard to qualify or quantify in terms of value. It's really more the values in the eye of the beholder when it comes to land. There's certain comps that you can find, but a lot of times they're all over the place. And so you kind of just are just averaging out what are these things worth in this area and throwing a number out there, and the marketplace says, yeah, I'm interested or I'm not, based on, your terms ultimately.
wow. And before we went live here, you were talking about a deal that an asset class that you aren't invested in yet, but we were kind of like going back and forth and talking about the merits of that asset class. And I thought that was a really cool deal. Do you mind sharing some numbers on
Sure.
that one?
Yeah. So, and I'll back up a little bit. I also started a pallet business, a recycling pallets business where we go and
Yeah.
pick up pallets for free and we resell them to places that need to buy them. And we can dive into that if you want. But the long story of it is I found an operator who runs the business. And as he's going out there and doing it, he's like, hey, it would be really cool if we had a place to park some of these pallets so that I could have ready inventory whenever I get a call. And so I just started looking for flex warehouse space. And in that process, like you said, I've never owned this. I never even tried to value it. I didn't know, but I knew it worked off of an NOI basis. Like it's running a business. It's based off of what's the profit look like. And I happened to find one here in my hometown. It's about 30 minutes away here near Birmingham. And this particular one has 4 units, but 6 total bays. And one of them is paying rent right now, about $12.50 a month. The other one, the owner currently occupies, and he's just has a ton of just junk in there. He operates a heavy equipment business out of it, and he's going to move eventually. But in the meantime, he's willing to pay like a month to month rent. So from the get go, he wanted 340 for this property, and it needs some work. It needs some like fixing up, some paint, some landscaping and stuff like this. But on the whole, it's in good shape, good bones, and everything's operational. And there's two spots that are currently open. And so I'm like, one, he hasn't operated this very well. So he's not getting a lot of interest from, the NOI itself is not very profitable. But I could see the possibility that you rent out one of the other bays, you occupy one of the bays, and then you got three tenants paying. Now, all of a sudden, if I could run this well, it could easily be worth 500 to 600,000 just based off of NOI. And so, long story, he just agreed to 330, which is a little bit lower. But the best part is he's willing to hold a second note on the property. I get a first lien at 70 to 80%. He holds the rest. So I'm actually coming to the table with $0, being able to get into the property, and his month-to-month rent and the current person who's already renting more than covers the debt service. So right out of the gate, I'm into the property with no money and no cost on a monthly basis, and I can lease up the other spot and make cash flow.
Yeah, what a great deal. And infinite cash on cash return to
That's right.
infinity and beyond, right? Infinite cash on cash return. That's a great deal. I've done a couple of those where the seller will take a second position, and you come in with little to no money down, and then you could either keep it for the cash flow, and if you want to put your pallet business in there, you could put yourself on a lease and you boost up the NOI even further.
Right.
It's an expense for one and income for the other, or you could just boost up the NOI and do a cash out refi, take out tax-free money, or you could sell it and take the profits and do a 1031 and go somewhere else. So that's what's so cool about real estate is you have so many different exit strategies, right?
Right.
Especially when you're coming in with virtually none of your own money. I mean, that to me is the holy grail. I've always wanted to do a land lease. If not to switch gears, but you buy. Have you ever done a land lease?
No, I don't. I'm not familiar with it.
So think about like in your hometown, if you see, a Starbucks or gas stations or a lot of corner lots,
Mm-hmm.
Walgreens, CVS. So a lot of people will they'll own the land and they'll lease back the land to a credit A corporation like that. The corporation is in charge of building the structure if it's not already built, and they're longer term leases. So you're talking 20, 30, 40, 50-year land lease deals. So you have the company leasing the land from you at a price, thousands of dollars a month, and you have no responsibility for the structure of the building. You have definitely no tenant calls, no toilets to fix, no roofs, none of that. They're in charge of everything. And if they defaulted, you could actually take back the property they built. So
Oh,
if it's
wow.
structured correctly, yeah. So that to me is like the absolute holy grail of commercial real estate is a land lease deal. Yeah, they're pretty cool. So thinking about going back to if you're doing a lot of these postcards of direct mail marketing to your experience with land, you should think about putting it out there if you find a good location, good corner lot or something that you think a good single tenant retail tenant could build there. You lease
Mm-hmm.
back the land and put it on a land lease, and now you're still owning the land, and now you're just collecting the monthly check, and they're in charge of everything, the whole building.
That's
So
really cool. Yeah, I like
yeah.
that.
Yeah, check that out. So talk to me about your portfolio. Obviously, you have the flex space going on. You're doing the land stuff. How did you cut your teeth in real estate? How did you get started? And a lot of people either do single family houses, maybe you house hacked,
Okay.
smaller multifamily. Where'd you get your start?
So, one, I would say I was not a great investor to begin with. It took a lot of years to learn the hard way in some cases. I was in the mortgage business, so I was around it a lot. And I would say my very first property was the first one that my wife and I bought was a condo that for years was just became a long-term rental after we couldn't sell it back in 2005 or so. And it made virtually no money. It was a terrible investment. But fast forward, we went 2020. Russ and I started a short-term rental business, and we started with that unit as our first trial run. And this is no joke, Mike. We have this documented. I was making less than like $100 a month on my long-term rental. It was so bad. We flipped it to a short-term rental, put some furniture in it, and had an operating partner. And that one unit made like over $2,000 in the first month of free cash flow. Well, that
Wow.
gave us the confidence to scale. And we started a rental arbitrage short-term rental business of over 27 units in less than 18 months.
Wow.
And that's because we had the right operating partner. We had the capital. We just started buying all the furniture and putting them in these locations. Um, long story, but in 23, we sold that business to our operating partner after many hundreds of thousands in cash flow. And now it's on a owner finance note back to us. And he just pays us every month to pay us back. We have one more year, I think, left on the note, but it's been a really, really profitable venture. And it all started because I made a really terrible choice of investment property. That condo was no
Wow.
good as a long-term rental, but it really worked well for the short-term business. Um, the other things I did early on, because I was in the mortgage business, I did some private loans and had some people come to me and they said, "Man, I don't fit the actual mold for a traditional, mortgage, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac mortgage." And so I looked at their deal and I'm like, they're going to buy this house. It's in a good location. They're going to put 20% down and they're going to pay me a 15-year note at 10%. I was like, I will do that. And so I just
Hmm.
put up the capital and they paid me for a few years before they refinanced. And it was a great start for me because it helped me to get more confidence in that. But I'll tell you, one of the things that most people don't know about that I'll add to the conversation is most people start with, what should I invest in? What should I invest in? Mike's investing in this. Joey's investing in this. Maybe I should do that. And the real thing I would tell you is that the thing that's made a game changer for us is something we call the investor DNA profile. So it's like your personality profile should match up with what you invest in. And I don't think people have ever stopped to even think about that. So we developed this about 5 years ago, and it's now something that you can take. It's something you can go online, take the profile, and it gives you a report that tells you, hey, you would actually really do well with. We have about 15 different items on the list of different passive income ideas, and it helps you filter what are the pros, what are the cons, and what are the resources necessary to be successful in one of those categories. So, like for instance, laundromats or RV parks or mobile home parks, or maybe it's e-commerce business, right? Or online websites. There's all
Hmm.
sorts of things we've either personally invested in or have people from our show that we've done a full, detailed response of this, and people can actually start to get direction because I think it can be overwhelming sometimes, Mike, that people are like, well, there's all these possibilities. What should I invest in? And I think this gives you that kind of clarity to then be able to take a confident step in your first investing.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Um, One thing that we kind of glanced over real quick, but going back to how you got your start was Airbnb arbitrage.
Mhm.
Do you mind for the listeners explaining what that is?
Yeah.
I know it could be a little confusing. So.
Yeah. So think about it this way. You own nothing but control everything. So you can go and approach, and there's there's some details here. You have to make sure you're in a zone, an area that allows for short-term rentals. There's all sorts of municipality codes and things that you have to navigate. But as soon as you find those locations that work, you can go to an existing landlord and say, hey, I'd like to rent your property, whether it's an apartment or a home or even a multifamily, and go like a small, like a duplex or quadplex or something, and go to them and say, hey, I'd like to rent your place on a long-term lease. Like I'd like to do a 3-year lease, for instance. I'm going to go ahead and lease that from you at, let's just say it's $1,000 a month per unit. I'm just making up something, right? I can then turn around and put furniture in that home and go and put it on Airbnb as a short-term rental that's furnished. And those people may pay me $150 a night for that same location. And so if I do that, over the course of 20 nights in a month, do the math. That's almost $3,000 a month that I got gross before cleaning fees and everything else. And so I only owe $1,000 to the landlord, but I get to keep the difference. That's the arbitrage. And we did this, as you mentioned, or as we talked about earlier, over 27 units in 18 months. Again, the biggest expense is, $10,000 to $15,000 per unit or per home in furniture and startup kind of fees. Like, you have to have security and different systems and things that you want to have in each unit to keep it where you can manage it easily. And then we just had an operating partner that ran the day to day. He managed all the communications with clients and guests, and made sure the cleaning crews were in and out and stuff like that. So it can be pretty time consuming if it's just you doing it. But we chose to make it passive by allowing an operating partner to come in and do it. But that was a
Yeah,
really cool
that,
experience.
I love that idea. I know a couple of people doing that, and I haven't actually having really good success in it. Do you tell the landlord up front what your plan is? Like, are
Oh
you
yeah,
okay? Yeah, you're
yeah,
okay with
yeah.
me doing this?
There's no way you should approach it without giving them the full picture. In fact, even the lease that we would sign with them would outline for them that we're going to sublet it on a daily basis, so that they know what to expect. But the funny thing is, you'd think that there's a lot of objections to that, like that these landlords are like, I don't want people in and out, in and out. But when you really break it down, there's actually a lot of benefits to a landlord to allow you to do it on a short-term basis, because you no longer have people moving in and staying there or not moving out or tearing the place up, and you don't even know that they're doing it because you don't go in and check on it on a regular basis. But when you have somebody that's in there and out every single night almost, you have a cleaning crew, you have people on site looking at it all the time. So you actually can take better care, as shocking as that may sound,
Hmm.
of a rental unit when you have the more consistent like turnover.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
anyways, there's
and
lots of ways to get around those objections, I guess is what I'm
you're
saying.
directly incentivized to keep their place as clean and tidy as possible because that's your business, right? At the end of the
Exactly.
day. So like, you could take your chance on anyone renting your place, Mr. Landlord. But I have a strong track record. This is my business. I'm going to be responsible for everything here. And obviously, you look at my past portfolio, like I'm going to treat this home like it's my own. And if I had the capital, I'd buy it outright from you because I think it's a great opportunity. But I'm going to spread it out throughout a couple houses, just like yours. So no, that's a great idea. So one last question I typically ask everyone is: obviously you've had a lot of success. Congratulations. And is there anything that any books you've read that you would attribute it to? Any great podcasts that you like to listen to? And then the second part of the question is: how do you structure your day from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed? Are you like a morning person? Do you get maybe a jog in, a quick workout in? Do you meditate? Do yoga? Like how do you get your mindset right?
Yeah, great question. So the book that changed everything for me, I always recommend people read, is called Become Your Own Banker by Nelson Nash.
Okay. I'm
Um,
going to write that down.
he was actually became a mentor of Russ and myself because he lived here in Birmingham until he passed a few years ago. But his one book taught me to take control of my finances. And it's actually something we now implement for people. We help people with the process that he outlines in the book. And that's part of that first step, that cash flow system we were talking about. We help people with that. In terms of like my day, my mindset, because I lived through, working so many hours and not having my own time and all that sort of thing, I now have really tried to be purposeful with my time. And I told you I have 5 daughters. Well, we homeschool them. And so I've made it a point to not really start my day before 10 a.m. In any way, shape, or form so that I can have breakfast with them. We go over, have devotional time. We, talk about the day, all that sort of stuff. And then I get them started on school, and then I can start on work. And I usually go until 4:30 or so, and then help with dinner. We have time together as a family. So I want to have bookends with my family every day. And the rest of the time, I'm just an ambassador for what we're doing, right? I'm doing stuff like this, being on podcasts, doing our own shows, things like that. And then, I have time with the Lord every morning. That's also important to me. And I work out twice a week with a trainer because I found out I'm really not that disciplined on my own. I have to have somebody that
Hey, it's
holds me
perfect.
accountable.
Yep.
And I'm in the best shape of my life because I actually have somebody keeping me focused on it. At 45, it took me that long to figure out how to get in shape with somebody
Yep.
else's help.
Oh,
So
it's good. You realize that. I think that's half the battle is people see, people get these gym memberships. Oh, I'm going to go spend all this money, all this time, and they never go. So, twice a week, it's perfect. You have a trainer, keep your mind right, keep your body right. That's awesome. Well, congratulations again on all your success. And if people want to learn more or find out more about Wealth Without Wall Street, where can they go?
yeah, so we make a dedicated page for your podcast. If you go to
Yep.
wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/sky's the limit, you will get some free resources. We've got a survey that you can start that will actually tell you how close, it's like a quiz, how close you are to financial freedom today, so that then you know what to be working on. We've got a free webinar. There's a couple other cool giveaways, and then our contact info is on there. So love to hear from you. If you heard me on this show, just let me know, man. Sky's the limit, and loved hearing you and Mike in your conversation.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Joey. Appreciate your time. Congratulations again. And we'll catch up soon. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for watching Sky's the Limit. We're always releasing new real estate content, so if there's something you want to hear, be sure to leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel.